very pleased to have Debby Kerr-Henry and her students here from her pre-pandemic embodiment writing class for this event at the Hub. When we first talked to Debby in 2019 about offering her class, there was always a hope that the effort would expand beyond simply the class itself. So we are very glad that that has happened. I'm grateful to Debby for organizing this event as a fundraiser. Like nearly all other small businesses, the pandemic has blown a hole in our finances here at the Hub. We don't know when normal will return, so the generosity of our guests and supporters are so important to keep us going. Thank you for being here or watching live on Facebook. And so without further ado, I'd like to turn it over to Debby Kerr-Henry. Debby?
Thank you, Richard. It's so good to see all of you and all of you out there on Facebook. Would like to start by reading something by one of my favorite authors, Anne Lamott. I don't know why life isn't constructed to be seamless and safe. Why we make such glaring mistakes. Things fall so short of our expectations, and our hearts get broken. And our kids do scary things. And our parents get old and don't always remember to put pants on before they go out for a stroll. I don't know why it's not more like it is in the movies. Why things don't come out neatly. And lessons can't be learned when we're in the mood for learning them. Why love and grace often come in such motley packaging. Today's stories are motley packaging of life. By using body prompts to inspire personal stories, a variety of topics have emerged. Recently, I read somewhere that said, it is a difficult process to be with oneself. That's so interesting to me, especially in light of this pandemic. It is a difficult process to be with oneself. I would like to add that even what is more difficult, at least in my opinion, is being with oneself in the presence of others. I am an authorpreneur. My business is Momentous Living, Better Self, Better Life. It's not perfect self, perfect life. It's better self, better world. What I mean by that is I believe that a healthy community begins with healthy people who are willing to learn and grow and expand. What I think is so cool and exciting and inspiring and empowering is that very thing happened in my Embodiment Memoir Writing Class. I watched all of these ladies who I will be introducing to you today step into a class, not really knowing what they were getting into, and I watched them through the process of writing, of discovering their stories, and working with those stories, massaging them and polishing them, and listening to the other ladies in this group share their opinions and their feedback and their encouragement about those stories. I watched them go through that process and become more comfortable and confident in themselves. And as the weeks progressed and the trust level became greater, I watched these same women become more comfortable and confident in themselves in the presence of others. To me, that is community. And I'm very thankful for the opportunity to be able to teach this class at the Hub, because the Hub is such a critical component of New Smyrna Beach. The first group of stories that you will be hearing begin with a one-word body prompt, hand. And what was so cool about the week that we started this story about our hands is that there was a photographer who was actually displaying her pictures in the gallery right here in the Hub The name of the photography exhibit was Hands of Time. And my students and I had the privilege of being able to go into the gallery right here and look at these black and white pictures of elderly hands. And these pictures told a piece of this person's story. It was such a beautiful exhibition. We went into the gallery, looked at these pictures, and went back into the classroom and started writing our own stories about our own hands. This first group of stories will be about hands. The second set of stories that you will hear later is a collaboration of different body part prompts, but this first one is all about hands. Having said that, it is my honor to introduce our first storyteller tonight, Leanne Shaw. Leanne, sorry. I want to say a few things about Leanne first, and I want to say a few things about all the ladies tonight. Leanne Shaw is from Ormond Beach, Florida. She conducts professional development seminars. You can find out more about her at leanneshawseminars.com. Leanne has made it her life mission to have a great attitude. That's what I love about her. She says so many inspiring and uplifting things. This is one of the things that she has said. Be the person whose presence always adds value. Leanne added value to our embodiment class. She continuously adds value to my life as I get to know her better. And I say with confidence that she will add value to your life today and at this event, in this moment. Please help me welcome Leanne Shaw as she shares her hand story titled The Promise of My Children's Hands.
I have used my hands to earn a living, write a book, cook meals, and a million other things in my life. Nothing has ever meant more to me than when I used my hands to care for my children, keeping them safe and creating connections. I would say I held my 3 children's hands since they were born. But the truth is, their hands were too tiny to clasp. Instead, their teeny little hands wrapped around my finger. As infants grew into toddlers, I held their hands to keep them safe. As small children, I held their hands to show affection and solidarity. All I did was blink, and they were too old to accept their hands being held. My oldest child, Tyler, is 28 years old. I can't remember the last time I held his hand. My middle child, Clay, is 25 years old. I can't remember the last time I held his hand. My youngest child, Riley, will be 17 years old this fall. I sometimes hold her hand. Years before they were too old for Mom to clasp their hands, I remember their childlike wonder. Mommy, Bug, is it good? Tyler would be overcome with excitement as he explored our front yards for all sorts of creatures. His fascination at a young age is one of my favorite stories of someone who was determined to do a specific thing in life. When Tyler was 8 years old, he showed me a picture of a penguin he drew. I told him I was impressed with how well he traced that bird. I did not trace that. I drew that, he said. And that is the day I realized he would use his hands to draw some pretty cool things. Look, Mom. Clay, although verbally skilled with a freakishly deep toddler voice, was my little man of few words. He was more apt to show me what he meant. I remember looking over and seeing my second-born carrying red 10-pound dumbbells in each hand. Clay had an affinity for carrying things well beyond the reasonable expectations of a toddler, thus earning him the nickname of Bam Bam before he was 2. Later, he used his hands to throw basketballs, footballs, baseballs, and climb trees so high I would panic. "You're so pretty, Mama," Riley would often say as her tiny little hands with pink nail polish clutched my face, reminding me of my worth in the process. When Riley was 8, she used her hands to care for her puppy, Dixie, with the same familiar affection of the toddler who adored her mother. Remembering how my babies used their tiny hands in those first years of life makes me smile. I smile not only because of the fond memories, but also because of the promise they held. The early signs that Tyler would one day become a scientist who studied bugs. Clay would be the strongest person I know. Riley would always find a way to care for living things. As a mother, I held my children's hands for a short time, but I will forever hold their hearts. I pray they will someday know the joy of holding a tiny hand, the struggle of letting go of that hand, and the peace that comes with knowing that in the end, that hand will have its own story to tell too.
Thank you, Leanne. You knew there had to be some mother stories here today. Our next storyteller is LaToya Carey. LaToya is from Daytona, and she is a small business owner with her husband, James. They manage KG Inspirations, that's INZPIRATION. It's a photography and videography company. They do excellent work. I met LaToya at a women's networking meeting, and it's interesting, we don't have a whole lot in common, but we had a connection immediately at that networking event, and I have been with her in different things ever since. I've really enjoyed getting to know LaToya, and I have a special place in my heart for LaToya simply because she, like me, is the mother of 2 sons. I pray for her a lot. Please help me welcome at this time LaToya Carey, who will be sharing her hand story titled Opening Doors of Opportunity.
Good evening, or afternoon. I wish I could remember. Why didn't I record it? Date stamp the significance of this moment. It was an open vision. It was something about my future appearing center stage, presenting to an audience of just one. As the house lights dimmed, the image became clearer. There was something remarkably familiar here. I saw my hands. Hands beautifully formed and developed even before the day of my birth. These were, for sure, my hands. I noticed their intricacies, like the start and finish lines, purposefully placed, running through my palms. Indeed, it was my hands that I saw. They appeared strong, steady, assured, like the balancing act of a tightrope walker. Not before long, my hands stretched across the unknown and they reached for something. Like a watchman on his post, I studied and then followed the extension of my right hand. It was a door. There it was, a door. Although present in this vision, the focus wasn't on the door, rather its knob. No, not the knob either. You see, this vision had little to do with doors or knobs. The revelation of this vision cast a spotlight on my hands. To my surprise, a sense of newfound liberation swept over me. Purpose was being discovered here. These hands were mission-minded. I saw them transform into automated solutions, keys, if you will, to an opening. Try and imagine this with me. As one hand reached to open a door, the other hand appeared to open yet another. This stage play was my future, and it came to reassure me that my hands were doors of opportunities that would continuously open. So encore, encore, I said. I just witnessed the empowerment of my hands. Thank you.
Thank you, Latoya. Our next storyteller today actually could not be here because she lives in Chenango Forks, New York. Hi, Gail. She should be with us on Facebook. Gail is a retired registered dietitian nutritionist, and I give her credit for getting me interested again in yoga. We do have the honor, if I can do the technology correctly, we are going to listen to Gail read her story on audio as we watch some of her images. Her story, her hand story is so unique, I really wanted to include it in our collection today.
In the summer of 1981, after graduating from college, I temporarily moved in with my parents. One Saturday, my mother and I decided to attend the Boston Spa Antique Show, which was a popular annual event in the area. As we walked around, my mother spotted a beautiful painted porcelain dish in the shape of two perfectly feminine hands. All I had to do was show a faint interest, and she bought it. "You need to start a collection," she said. That was my first hand. Not long after I moved into my own apartment, I placed my beautiful hand dish in a special spot and knew that, of course, my mother was right. It needed company. Not that I needed a collection, but I wanted one. And since attending antique shows had become a favorite pastime, I found myself looking for hands. I became really good at spotting them from a mile away amidst tables full of glassware and trinkets. They had to be beautiful, feminine, and decorative, and I loved the hunt. Over the following weeks, months, and years, I accumulated a wonderful collection of over 100 hands. They were porcelain, china, glass, ceramic, and even pottery. Some were treasured gifts, others were rare finds that I probably paid way too much money for, like the pretty hand-painted porcelain Noritake ring holder. I would put a small sticker on the bottom of each hand telling where it came from and other facts about it. Each one was unique and special. I loved arranging and displaying my collection of hands, but I also used them. Several hands held fresh flowers on my kitchen table, makeup brushes on my vanity, and pens on my desk. A small peach-colored hand with an open palm, long, slender fingers, and gold-painted flowers on the wrist held my earrings at night. So many of my hands were dainty and petite that when my cousin gave me a large McCoy pottery dish in the shape of two open hands, we laughed at its size. "You could serve mashed potatoes in it," she said. And that's exactly what I did. My father-in-law once gave me a box full of masculine, veiny, praying Jesus hands that he found at a garage sale. "Oh, no, no, no," I cried. I explained to him that those weren't the kind of hands I collected. We laughed about it for years. My days of collecting hands was long ago. Time has a way of passing and changing our lives. My mother is gone now, and so are most of my hands. I did keep, however, and still display a few of my very favorite ones, including my very first hand. They remind me of a wonderful time, but even more so, of a wonderful memory of my mother.
deal. Everybody's clapping for you. I've been told those of you on Facebook are having a hard time hearing, so we're going to try and speak a little bit louder and adjust the volume on our end. Our next storyteller is Sonia Jean Craig. She lives right here in New Smyrna Beach. She is an avid supporter and patron of the arts, and she was our class poet. We all learned a little bit about poetry from her. You will understand what I say when you listen to her stories today. They have this poetic vibe to them. Sonia Jean also co-hosts writing prompts with the Hub for exhibits in the Fine Art Photography Gallery, which I think is so cool. When photographers come here and display their work, Sonia Jean will hold this gathering where we get to meet the photographer and hear about them and their work. And then we have time to actually write something that is inspired from their work. So there's a lot of cool things that come from that, and Sonia Jean helps organize with that. Sonia Jean is one of those people that has this calming spirit. So I need a lot of Sonia Jeans in my life. We probably all do, but that's one of the things that I appreciate most about her. Please help me welcome Sonia Jean Craig as she shares her story, her hand story, titled A Touching Moment.
Good afternoon, everyone. It's wonderful to see you all. Hey, Facebook. What a delight to pet the cosmic cat. Soft, warm, responsive to my fingers, gently tapping her neck and head, using my palm to stroke the back and tail. Embracing softness, stroking, touching with loving care, she purrs. The vibration resonates along my ring finger. I clasp her neck and tickle her ears. With my other hand, I reach for a warm cup of tea. My fingers and thumb firmly cradle the smooth porcelain handle. The warmth comforts my palm. As I bring the cup to my lips, the scent of saffron flower essential oil lingers on my wrist, complementing the taste of the passion flower herbal tea. Still cradling Kitty with a loving grasp, she senses the distraction. I gently return the cup of tea to its coaster. With both hands, I roll Kitty over to reach the tenderness of her tummy. The fur underneath is finer, softer. Her belly heaves with joy as I caress it. I take 2 fingers and tickle her in those special places under her chin. My fingers dance across her to the music of one of Chopin's nocturnes, playing her body like a piano. I am a grand pianist on her fur. Her tail swings into my hand. I caress the fur to its tip. Stray cat hair settles in the groove of my fingers, a tactile expression of love that my hands fulfill. The cosmic cat, content.
Thank you, Sonia Jean. I apologize, I didn't get the music timed exactly right for you, but that was so good. You did a great job. Our next storyteller today is Doris Tomjanovich. She lives in Edgewater. Doris is a woman of many talents. She actually weaves rugs, their hands, which is so cool to me. She bakes things from scratch. She doesn't run to the store and get a box of brownies. She is a woman of so many talents. I am so impressed by her. And I have to say, not that I would do this, but if we all voted on like class favorite for this class, I would guess that Doris would win that. Because Doris has been such an inspiration to all of us. She started this class writing her stories by longhand, and she quickly realized that we would be talking about our stories and giving suggestions and doing many drafts of our stories. And so she knew she needed to remember typing, which she had to start practicing that again. She did not quit the class, but she got an iPad. She started typing her stories. And she just said, she told me last week, I almost quit the class when we all talked about actually sharing our stories. Doris is still with us, and she not only is going to get up here and share her stories, she actually was going to have her daughter read her stories for her, but she is going to come up here and read her own stories, and all of you are going to be so blessed by Doris. Please help me welcome Doris Tomijanovich. Well, she reads her story called Memories of My Grandma.
Is that okay? When my grandmother came to the United States from Finland on January 2nd, 1914, she was 22 years old. She accompanied her niece, whose parents already lived in the United States. Her intention was to return to Finland, but meeting my grandfather changed those plans. They were married June 27, 1914. My grandparents settled on a farm in northern Minnesota. My grandfather worked on the railroad, fixing the tracks, forcing him to be away from the home for several days at a time. That left Grandma taking care of the farm and their cows, pigs, and sheep, feeding, milking, and shearing, tending to their large garden and flowers that surrounded the house. Grandma canned garden vegetables and even meat because they didn't have any refrigerators or freezers. This was all done in addition to doing housework and cooking meals on a wood stove. Doing laundry was quite the undertaking too. Carrying water from the well, starting a fire in the sauna stove to heat the water, boiling sheets and white clothes after adding homemade soap. Grandma's washing machine consisted of a stand that held 2 tubs with a wringer in between. She would wash the clothes with a scrubbing board in the first tub, then run them through the center wringer in the rinsing tub, then hang the clean clothes out to dry. With all her chores, you would think Grandma would be stressed out, but that was not in her nature. She was always strong and steady. Kaikki tehdään oman aikaa, she would say, or everything done in its own time. Being isolated, Grandma watched soap operas for entertainment, picking up some important English. As time passed, we realized that even if she couldn't speak English, she understood what was being said because she laughed when someone said something funny. But it became clear that she refused to speak English perhaps out of pride or fear or just plain stubbornness. In Grandma's spare time, she would weave rugs on the loom that my grandfather made. I would sit beside her every chance I got and watch her work. She would cut up old clothes into strips and weave them into new rugs. I spent many hours playing with the buttons she saved while cutting up the clothes. Grandpa carved the shuttle she used out of old siding, and I still use them to this day. My grandparents were frugal out of necessity. Grandma would shear the sheep, make a variety of useful things in a variety of processes. She would wash the wool, then card it using 2 paddles with short wire bristles. The process cleans the wool and prepares it for spinning or felting. She not only spun the wool into yarn, she would then weave the yarn into rugs and knit mittens and socks. She would also take the raw wool and wet felt it to make slippers for Christmas gifts for her grandchildren and boot liners for the long, cold winters. Grandma was 80 years old when she had her knee replaced. She injured it when she fell from a tractor rig while making hay. She gave up weaving at that time and gave me her loom, along with many weaving lessons. I still have the loom, but because it's too large for my small home, it is now safely stored away to pass on to my artistic grandson who lives in Montana. I weave on a smaller loom. I spent a lot of time on the farm, resulting in me learning to speak Finn. One of my special memories is crawling into my grandma's lap as a 10-year-old. What comfort. Grandma taught me so much, not only what she said, but how she lived her life. Always strong and steady, everything in its own time. When I see my hands, I see Grandma's hands.
You would enjoy her. She's unofficially the class favorite. Our next and our last storyteller for this set of stories is Pamela Rainey Tatum. Pamela lives right here in New Smyrna Beach. She's an artist here at the Hub in Studio 5, right over there. She uses a technique called palette knife painting, where she brings portraits, figures, still lifes, as well as seascapes and landscapes to life. She does a beautiful job with her paintings. Pamela loves reading and writing, as well as creating art. Pamela wrote her hand story, I believe, in January, and it was before her father passed away. So she was so appreciative of the fact that she had that time to write this story about her father and be able to read it I'm going to get emotional before you even get up here. But she was able to write the story and actually read it to him before he passed away. Please help me welcome Pamela Rainey Tatum as she shares her story called My Daddy's Hands.
Hi everybody, and thank you for being here and with us live on Facebook. Thank you. Okay, I have tears in my eyes, so let me see. My daddy's hands. My daddy's hands, large, rough, a working man's hands, perfectly fit his physique. In his heyday, he stood 6 feet 3 inches, an outdoorsman, lean, muscular, a man's man. Throughout my life, I remember him blushing as women would try to catch his eye. My mom once said, I remember when I first saw him. He was so handsome, his eyes matched the color of his turquoise convertible. Daddy loved working with his hands. He built bird feeders, set traps for squirrels and rabbits that we'd eat, until I was about 5 years old when he showed my sister and me the pre-slaughtered bunny, and we demanded he not do that again or we'd refuse to eat forever. He also repaired our cars. He hunted, fished, gardened, cooked, and played a good hand of pinochle. Remembering my daddy's hands is like reminiscing about youth, what was and is no more. He's now 83 and has serious physical limitations. No more fishing, hunting, or boating. And he no longer gardens or cooks much either. These days, he's limited mostly to his recliner with his sweet dog Ginger at his feet. His hands now hold things, the remote for watching movies, his books, his tablet to play words with friends with his kids and grandkids, and the Atlanta Journal-Constitution for news and crossword puzzles. And my mama still loves him after over 60 years of marriage and raising 5 daughters together. We still love listening to Daddy's stories about how he and Mama met and fell in love and wrote love letters for 3 years. He tells exciting stories of his Navy days in Japan and Australia. But best of all, we love hearing stories about us 5 girls growing up. His eyes light up with every visit from his 5 daughters, 11 grandchildren, and 13 great-grandchildren. It is us who bring out his sweetest grins and the spark in his still turquoise eyes. Some days I catch myself staring at my daddy's hands, juxtaposing their fragility with the strong, youthful hands of his youth. The same juxtaposition I've always seen between his rough hands and his soft, warm heart. He is, most and always, a heart person. A few years ago, my daddy suffered a medical procedure gone bad and was sent to a rehabilitation center for 3 months. He amazed me. He had always been a little shy, but here he beamed with confidence. He was the rock star. Everyone loved him and wanted to be with him. Despite his newly gained status of Mr. Popularity, he remained, as always, sweet, humble, and kind. As I mentioned, women had always been attracted to my daddy, and even with his declining physicality, one female patient there told me, if that man were not married, I'd be all over that. The nurses were sweet on him too, and the male patients would come in their wheelchairs, knock on his door, and ask, is Don free for some cards? Or can I talk to Don for a spell? everyone wanted time with my daddy. William was a patient there whose room was across from my daddy's. He was a black man who had survived a house fire that had left his face horribly disfigured. One day, a nurse wheeled him into the dining room to a table near ours. The two women at the table put their menus over their faces and said they'd vomit if he sat there. Everyone heard. I was speechless, but not my daddy. William, come over here. You're welcome to eat at our table every day. From then on, William ate with us, and my dad would ask him questions to get to know him and make him feel liked, known, and most of all, appreciated. After that, everyone there accepted William. That was my daddy. My daddy's large, masculine hands were beautiful, but his huge, loving heart shines as his most endearing quality. Thank you.
Thank you, Pamela. I know that was hard to get through. What a beautiful story. Thank you to all of you ladies for sharing this first set of stories about your hands. I'm going to take just a few minutes before we start our second set of stories and just say a couple things about the Hub. So the mission of the Hub is to create community by fostering art, education, and a broad range of creative opportunities. The Hub on Canal acts as an incubator for more than 70 artists, showcasing their work, offering impromptu artist talks, and supporting the community through a plethora of classes and workshops at all levels. The Hub on Canal brings the community together through events and extends the arts to the underserved through scholarship programs, mentoring, and art and music classes and workshops. All these activities revitalize our community and stimulate economic growth. I love that mission. What I did not know about the Hub when I first moved to New Smyrna Beach a few years ago, I can't get this microphone right, is that they do a lot of outreach here in this beautiful space. They provide a lot of programming for children, for Alzheimer's patients, and for disabled veterans, among other things. I personally have just benefited from being here at the Hub by being able to present these embodiment memoir writing classes, and I'm so appreciative of that, Richard, for you allowing me to do that, not even knowing who I was. So I do want to use this event today to give back a little bit. I am focusing just specifically on what they have lost with classes and workshops that have been canceled, and that is about $1,200 a month just from their cancellations. So my goal is to at least raise enough money to recover a month's loss from our classes, so $1,200 is what my goal is. So I hope that all of you here or out there in Facebook will donate online. There's a link there on the Facebook page. There's also a way to donate on their website at the huboncanal.org. And so I guess to help us all better understand what the Hub is all about, I want to show us a video before we start in on our second set of stories.
Since the beginning of time, art has brought people together. From earliest man scratching murals on cave walls to the digital walls of the internet age, The sharing of art has served as a means of communication, teaching, and entertainment, turning individuals into groups and uniting us through a shared sense of place, culture, and purpose. But the synchronicity of art creating community isn't simply a thing of the past. It's alive and well today in the great state of Florida, in the heart of Volusia County, smack dab in downtown New Smyrna Beach, in a place we call the Hub. Located on historic Canal Street, the Hub was founded on the belief that by bringing artists, art lovers, and curious newcomers together, that everyone in our growing community would benefit. What the Hub offers is a central cultural gathering spot where locals can create and be exposed to an incredible variety of art, a place unique to our community. Today, after years of planning and cooperation, the Hub is a reality. Workshop and studio spaces are rented in capacity and overflowing with talented artists and teachers dedicated to the future of the arts in New Smyrna Beach. The Hub artists are all members of our community. They may be your friends or neighbors, your children or grandchildren, your colleague, your spouse, maybe even you. At the Hub, we believe there's a spark of an artist in everyone. So we're offering the community a place to create and a venue to share an array of visual, decorative, and performing arts. Classes and workshops offer the young and the young at heart an opportunity to learn and explore, to rediscover an old pastime, or uncover a new passion. There's bound to be something for everyone. Discover.
Creativity, community, innovation, collaboration, sharing ideas,
A lot of laughter.
passion, fantastic,
Art ranges.
melting pot, energy,
Quality.
self-expression, imagination, colorful, inspiration.
Well, where does inspiration come from? From a dream? Or from the imagination? Or is it born of a desire to create something original? To give back to the world around us? At the Hub, our understanding of art extends beyond individual creative expression. To us, art includes teaching, sharing, and outreach. We believe that by working together and learning from one another, that we deepen our ties as a community, growing stronger, more dynamic, and more connected. This belief aims to define Hub Art Canal's central mission: art, creating community. Since its inception, the Hub has been a vital leader of New Smyrna Beach's economic and social development, an inclusive, kinetic wheel extending spokes of revitalization throughout the entire historic district. Every year, thousands of people pass through our doors, a massive expansion of foot traffic that has benefited local business, leading to a financial and cultural renaissance. But to ensure that the Hub remains a part of New Smyrna Beach's future, we need your help. The Hub could not exist without the tireless efforts of volunteers or the generous donations of countless friends. We're grateful to all that have contributed to our growth, but we are dependent upon your continued support. Your contributions will allow the Hub to continue to expand its influence, reaching more people in the community and giving back to New Smyrna Beach for years to come. So where do we go from here? The Hub began, like many dreams do, as a singular idea, a vision of a stronger, a more sustainable community created through the sharing of art. And over time, we grew. From 1 to 2 to 3, until eventually we became what we are today. Over 100 artists and supporters committed to fulfilling the Hub on Canal's central mission, art creating community. As a nonprofit, the Hub's goal is to give back. And so all revenue is reinvested with purpose in increasing the positive impact that art has in our schools and throughout our town. As the Hub grows, we'll expand important outreach initiatives and popular children's programs. And we'll continue to offer valuable youth scholarships, ensuring opportunity and education for our artists of the future to develop right here in our own community.
The Hub inspires people to explore their creativity.
It's an incredible opportunity to be exposed to many local artists.
The Hub is a gathering place. The Hub has re-energized our community.
It's an amazing place of creative inspiration.
The Hub is a great place for kids to see art and learn about art.
It's an outlet for creativity.
Highlights the arts, bringing people together culturally. The Hub is like a family. The Hub is an anchor for the arts in this room. I think that the Hub is a box of crayons.
It allows artists to experiment.
We offer people the opportunity to find their creative voice.
People walk in and they're just instantly inspired.
This is an inclusive place that brings all members of the community together.
At the Hub, our dream is of a bright future for New Smyrna Beach. A future full of creativity, community service, and boundless imagination.
Before we get started on our next set of stories, if y'all want to stand just a second and stretch, and then we'll get going here in just 1 minute. Don't go away. There is wine and water in the back there if you'd like to get some refreshments. We're going to start just in a couple minutes here.
Something interesting.
There, so I figured if I could do it there, I could do it
there.
there.
That was amazing. Yeah, you did.
We don't want to leave our Facebook people hanging out there, so everybody get their refreshments and find your seat as quickly as possible. Thank you. get started on our second set of stories. And like I mentioned earlier, these stories are a collaboration of different body part prompts. So this will be really interesting to listen to these second stories. These are stories that each one of my students chose as one of their favorites. We're going to start again with Lee Ann Shaw. So please help me welcome back to the music stand, Lee Ann Shaw.
My cousin Deanna was thrilled when I told her my plans to escape Hurricane Charlie by visiting her in Atlanta. There was nothing she loved more than having family gatherings, and the reason really did not matter. Just 11 months earlier, she had made a spontaneous trip to see me. Well, actually, she made a spontaneous trip to see my daughter, Riley. At the time of Riley's birth, Deanna and I had 5 boys between us. She headed straight to Florida to bear witness to our family's female baby. She arrived in the wee hours of the night with her 3 boys and waited longer to meet Riley than anyone had expected. Sorry. Riley had been jaundiced, and there was difficulty getting her bilirubin levels down. In fact, my homecoming with Riley was short-lived. We were home for less than 2 hours when I received a call informing me Riley would have to be readmitted to the hospital. Deanna and my mom joined me in the hospital room that night. Riley resembled a miniature tanning bed customer as she lay in the jaundice treatment device receiving phototherapy. Logically, I knew this was a count your blessings is only jaundice moment, but I was stressed out and exhausted. Deanna was able to infuse my stress and fatigue with the lightness and laughter only she could bring. We laughed, we took turns rubbing Riley's little hands, and we awed over the cute little girl clothes Deanna insisted on buying. Because we did not know Riley's gender ahead of time, those were the first girl clothes Riley had. So, 11 months later, it was no surprise that Deanna was unfazed by 2 more adults, 3 more children, and 2 dogs invading her suburban home to escape Hurricane Charlie in August 2004. She found joy in unexpected guests that disrupted her life after a new school year had started. My younger cousin seemed more like my baby sister. We had always been close, and as we entered adulthood, that closeness grew deeper. I was never quite the laid-back, free spirit that Deanna was. I mean, sure, I would have welcomed her family if they were fleeing a possible natural disaster, but I would have first planned, organized, and made sure everything was orderly. Deanna found joy in the chaos. I want to get a tattoo on my toe, Deanna announced as we sat chatting at her kitchen table during my family's unforeseen visit. You want what? I asked. I want a tattoo on my toe. A butterfly on a flower on my second toe. Don't you think that would be cool? You should get one too. No, I am not getting a tattoo on my toe. Despite my sobriety, Deanna somehow convinced me to get a tattoo on my foot. She would get the same foot tattoo, and she would also get her toe tattoo. After tossing ideas around, we decided we would get 3 little ladybugs to represent the blessings of our 3 children. We left the kids behind with Deanna's husband and took a field trip with our older brothers to a local tattoo parlor. The boys didn't think we would actually permanently mark our feet with insects. They were wrong, and we delighted in proving our courage to our big brothers. It's so crazy the moments in which we find joy. A tattoo parlor on a gloomy Saturday provided so much laughter. And we all knew it was because of Deanna, our built-in life of the party. For years to come, I will relay that story to her grandchildren. I will tell them how their grandmother's beautiful olive-colored face turned white as a sheet as she cried out that a toe tattoo hurt more than 3 natural childbirths. Our big brothers and I laughed so hard that day. On the following 4th of July, it would be my turn to play hostess as Deanna and her family visited us for the long holiday weekend. On that trip, we decided our ladybugs more closely resembled scabs, and we set out to design a branch to complement the little bugs on our feet. Our husbands simply shrugged their shoulders. Those silly tattoos symbolize the closeness of our bond. We found so much joy in those tattooed ladybugs on our feet. A few days before Thanksgiving, just more than 10 years after the matching tattoos were complete, I received a text from Deanna. She asked me if I would travel to Georgia for the holiday. A few days was not enough time to change my plans, and so we instead planned for a New Year's Eve gathering. On December 2nd, however, Deanna passed away after a 4-year battle with cancer. I will never get to hear her laugh again. But it was such an honor to have laughed with her a million times before. Now, every time I sit on the beach and look at my toes in the sand, I catch a glimpse of 3 little ladybugs. And I smile at the memories of Deanna that remind me to take that spontaneous trip. Get the silly tattoo. Don't overthink every little decision. Laugh often and choose happy, because life will never be perfect, but it can always be wonderful.
Yes.
Thank you, Leanne. So many of these stories, I try not to cry through them. They're so emotional. Leanne's story was 3 little ladybugs, and it was about her feet. I forgot to say that. Our next storyteller, we're going to welcome Pamela Ramey Tatum back up to the music stand. Her prompt is stomach, and the title of her story is More Than a Meal. Enjoying the bright, sunny day and the smell of Turkish coffee that permeated the street, I wandered through the market in Selçuk, Turkey with my then boyfriend Ben. We were overwhelmed at the variety of brightly colored produce, fresh flowers, bottles of olive oil, and bins of olives. Best of all, this was a place where the locals were. It was not a tourist destination. Halfway down the busy market street, we met brothers Hazir and Jamal, along with Hazir's son, Dennis, who were selling clothes and shoes. They spoke little English, and we spoke little Turkish, but with our translation dictionary, hand gestures, and an abundance of enthusiasm, we managed to communicate. We love Turkey so far, I gushed. You from America? Hazir, a nice-looking 40-something-year-old, asked. He smiled and his eyes lit up when we answered, yes, very much. Jamal, the younger brother in his late 30s, was eager to get in on the conversation. What do you do here in Turkey, he asked.
We flew into Istanbul 2 weeks ago and are going down the western coast, hitting the beach towns, Ben told them. We were in Krakow, Poland for months, but it got too cold there, I explained. I love the weather here. It's so beautiful. We met their mother, Annie, an elderly, rotund woman with kind, soulful eyes and a sweet smile. We also met Dennis's 2 spunky sons and his daughter, who looked like her grandfather, Hazir. I purchased a flowing embroidered blouse and began to say goodbye. Before we left, Hazir invited us for dinner. We want to cook for you tonight. You come? Ben and I saw our agreement and simultaneously said, yes, we'd love to. They gave us their address and we continued on our way, enjoying the rich sights, sounds, and smells of the market. That evening when we arrived, the sun was sinking into the horizon, the deep shades of blue, purple, and orange. Their apartment, a simple 2-bedroom with a kitchen and small dining room, was sparsely furnished and barely decorated with a sofa, a round wooden coffee table, a cushioned rocking chair, and a few ladder-back chairs. There was no dining room table or kitchen table. Hazir and Jamal greeted us warmly, and we sat on the sofa trying to communicate with Annie, who was in the rocking chair. Moments later, Jamal brought out a huge silver platter full of chicken and vegetables with a warm basket of pita bread. He placed it in the center of the coffee table. We had plates and napkins, but no silverware. We followed their lead, eating from the platter using the bread as our spoons. They also served a Kurdish dessert, ravani, a delicious cake soaked in syrup that Annie had made just for this occasion. Sharing the joy of this family as they welcomed us, fed us, and told us more about themselves was the highlight of the month we spent in Turkey. My heart blasted wide open as we learned about their journey from eastern Turkey after their home and restaurant had been burnt to the ground in a political conflict. They'd left with nothing but clothes and a little money and traveled west to Selçuk because they knew of other Kurds who had come here. They didn't tell us, but we knew from our research that Kurds, the oldest indigenous people on earth, make up about 20% of the Turkish population and have long been discriminated against and denied basic rights. Kind, gentle Annie rarely spoke, but her face and her eyes communicated volumes. I felt an instant connection with her. I wanted to know her, how she lived her life, what had been its highlights, both the happy and the painful. I imagined that losing everything and having to move across country would be pain enough. But I wanted to know who she had loved and lost, what her passions had been. I saw the suffering blended with the kindness in Annie's eyes. I sensed that Annie didn't experience much human touch and needed it, so I held her hand and squeezed it softly. She responded by smiling sweetly at me and squeezing my hand back. Later, I gently massaged her neck and shoulders, which she seemed to love. Words were not necessary. Through our touch and our eyes, I understood that she had lived a life with deep love and joy, as well as profound sadness and loss. Connecting through song and laughter also proved more powerful than talking. Jamal played guitar as the brothers and Annie sang Kurdish folk songs for us. They wanted to hear some American songs too, so we sang the Star Spangled Banner, America the Beautiful, and a few others. In a spontaneous moment, Hazir showed us some Kurdish dancing, but then seemed to feel silly and sit down. We urged him to show us more, and once he was confident that we enjoyed it, he was willing. His arms were out to the side like a child in airplane pose, and he leaned from side to side, stepped forward and back in rhythmic beats, and waved his arms in elegant gestures. He explained that each village of Kurdish people in the East has their own signature dance. Before hugging these beautiful souls goodbye, we mentioned that we were going to visit the ancient ruins of the city Ephesus the following day. They gave us a couple of tips about getting an early start, wearing comfortable shoes, and so on. Ben and I were up early the next morning talking about the amazing night we had experienced. Then we headed downstairs to have the front desk call us a taxi to go to Ephesus. We were shocked to see Hazir and Jamal sitting in the lobby, dressed in their Sunday best, dress pants, button-down shirts with bow ties and hats, and they were beaming. "We are your taxi," Hazir beamed. They had borrowed their cousin's car to take us to Ephesus. We were overwhelmed. "You two are so generous," I exclaimed, trying to somehow convey how moved I was at their kindness and generosity. At Ephesus, they got us a discount on our tickets. We tried to buy tickets for them, but they wouldn't allow it. "Oh no, we have been here many times. We wait for you. You go, take your time. We wait here." After our adventure, which did not compare to the night we had had with this beautiful family, we found Hazir and Jamal waiting. We insisted on taking them to lunch, where we sat outside in a garden talking about the beauty and history of Ephesus. After lunch, we ordered dessert and Turkish coffee so we could linger some more with our new friends. There was a palpable sense of collective hesitation to say goodbye. We all knew that this had been a perfect merging of the East and West, the Turkish Kurds and the Americans, both deeply nourished by the other. Thank you.
Thank you, Pamela. So much we can learn in traveling and getting outside of our own culture. At this time, I would like to welcome Doris Tomjanovich back up here. She is actually going to read one story, and then Doris, if you will, just stay up here and read your second story. I will introduce you a second time as well. Please help me welcome Doris again as she reads. Her prompt is Heart, and the title of her story is Overcoming Grief, which I think will touch many people as we are in this pandemic. So please help me welcome Doris.
Left alone with my heart. I felt left alone with my heart, coming home from school for lunch to an empty apartment, fixing lunch for my younger sister and brother. Those are some of my memories. My young mother, not available, dealing with the loss of her husband at 34 years old to a heart attack. My mother remarried, and our lives changed even more. Everything felt insecure. There was a loss of financial security, and the feeling of being safe. So I realized I had to take care of myself and went to work to be able to buy my own clothes and then pay for my graduation expenses. In high school, one of my friends had a very handsome older brother who all the girls had a crush on. For some unknown reason, he chose me. He called me beautiful and kid. I married right out of high school. We had 3 children, 2 daughters and a son. Life was not boring and mundane. Peter was always adventurous and ready to try anything new. 15 years later, the roof fell in. At 40 years old, my husband was diagnosed with arteriosclerosis. He was very close to having a major stroke. He had surgery on both the left and right carotid arteries. His father died young, as mine had, and I feared I would be raising my children alone. While he was in the hospital recovering once again, I felt alone with my heart. Life settled down, and then the roof fell in again. At 51, Peter had a heart attack. Again, we went through the heart-stopping experience and the battle of recovery. I went to work, and Peter was on disability. It wasn't long when Peter said, "There is more to life than sitting indoors and putting wood in the fire." So we made the decision to become snowbirds and spent winters in Florida, where our oldest daughter and her children lived. In 6 years, we made it permanent. I said goodbye to my home, family members, and the community I had known all my life. The rest of our children moved to Florida, which helped. We had a life full with the addition of grandchildren. 11 months after our 42nd wedding anniversary, Peter went into sudden cardiac arrest. He died at 68. It was more than the roof falling in. Now my world crumbled. The pain and grief were beyond description. I remember wondering, how did I get here again? The road to my emotional recovery was not easy. I learned the real experience of grief is being left alone with your heart, feeling old and no future, as if life is over. My journey forced me to dig deep within to the sisu in me. In Fan, sisu means perseverance, determination, and strength. It is part of my heritage. My recovery process was step by step, sometimes little steps, sometimes big ones. I had to connect to those around me and share my heart with family, friends, co-workers, and know I was no longer alone with my heart. Until the day I said to myself, I can do this, not alone, but with others, and my faith in God that held me up during the bad times. I had to connect with family, friends, and co-workers to know that I was no longer alone with my heart.
These are tearjerkers now. Sisu, remember that word, right? Sisu. I got it right the second time. Thank you. Okay, I did want to come back up here and introduce the second Doris story. This is a poem that she wrote, and I absolutely love this. It was prompted by the word hair, and it is a poem about her husband, Peter. Please help me welcome back to the music stand again, Doris.
Hair parted just so, home with a wave. Oh.
Sorry. Okay.
Hair parting just so, home with a wave, always in place. Pants with a crease, never blue jeans. The entrance is not for exiting, the exit is not for entering. A handsome man, yet humble and shy, with common sense, always in place, combed with a wave, hair parted just so.
We're also glad you did not leave the class.
Yeah.
Sisu, right? Okay. We have two more storytellers today. Our next one is Sonia Jean Craig, and her prompt, her second prompt that she will share with all of us this evening is stomach, and her story is titled From the Gut. Please help me welcome Sonia Jean back up here.
From the gut. We often hear about the head-heart connection and speculate on how to connect these two centers. What we miss from this head-heart equation, however, is the component of the gut. The gut is the place where intuition and decision take action. The gut digests and breaks down density like a large washing machine, churning dark, gray fears and worry into a pristine energy source. For example, when I was young, I had a very difficult relationship with my mother. We did not see eye to eye. Her attempts to parent me were lost in a sea of hurt and resentment. We both made deliberate and hurtful choices. One night, before hosting guests, she told me not to eat any of her food because it was all for them. Well, I had the bright idea to paint the word bitch on the driveway. Needless to say, that did not go over well. She had her guests throw me out of the house. I was completely on my own at age 18. With a bag of essentials, I hitchhiked to San Francisco. That departure took guts. I was lucky enough to have a buddy accompany me till New Mexico. The people who picked us up helped me get a ride into San Francisco. This began 5 years of no contact with my mother. When I arrived in San Francisco, I instinctively went to the beach. There I met a man that guided me to a commune. I thrived and even founded a household cleaning service with some new friends. We did great. One of our regular clients, in fact, was Bill Graham, the German-American impresario and rock concert promoter. It was easy for me to make friends and build a good quality of life. But deep down, I was reeling from the hurt around my relationship with my mother. One evening, during a peace march down Market Street, I realized that I could not authentically stand for peace while my heart was still at war with my own mother. I had to make amends. That decision took guts. I called my aunt and asked her to assess the situation. She did and assured me my mom was willing to talk. My mother was, in fact, deeply hurt and wanted to heal our relationship also. We talked and cried and eventually found peace. We were fine as long as we were 3,000 miles apart, communicating by mail and by phone. All seemed copacetic, in order. In the year 2000, I moved to Florida near my mother. It quickly became clear, however, that we still had some work to do on our relationship. She pushed my buttons and I pushed hers. We both had a lot of soul-searching and work to look beyond our orderly appearances and see one another from a deeper perspective. Our work took guts. When I began to understand the reasoning for my mother's choices, that's when the compassion kicked in. My mom and I both live in New Smyrna Beach, still with our own way of looking at things, but our relationship has grown into a connection of head, heart, and gut. From the head, I realize ours is a loving awareness and appreciation of each other and our differences. From the heart, I feel her as my beloved mother. And from my energy-churning gut, digesting my experiences, I know that which is waste and that which I integrate as nourishment. We retain, without a doubt, a nurturing mother-daughter bond. Thank you.
Thank you, Sonia G. You know, the first set of stories that we shared were our first stories. And as we worked through several weeks of this class, we started really turning up more topics as we became more comfortable and trusting of one another. And so some of these topics were really hard, but in that process of writing, I think we were all becoming just more aware of who we were and just some of our history and learning to embrace that and learn from it. Thank you, Sonia Jean. I know that was a hard story for you to share. Our TV, or the PowerPoint for some reason quit, but our last storyteller tonight, LaToya, I really want you to listen to her. We didn't have actually pictures for her. We were just doing more words. So you can emphasize those words and we will just listen to you. LaToya chose the prompt mouth, and the title of her story is Where is My Voice? Please help me welcome back to the music stand, LaToya Carey.
Shut up. No one wants to hear what you have to say. It was the sound of brokenness on constant repeat, not only in my head, but recorded in my heart. Shut up. No one wants to hear what you have to say. It was a deep-rooted lie accepted as my truth, and it was the beat of the drum I walked to. Where was my voice? My own national anthems consisted of lyrics to made-up songs I entitled Be Quiet and Stay Timid. Fear-eclipsed moments presented to stand up and be heard paralyzed my vocal cords. My voice was a symphony of my thoughts and opinions, likes and dislikes, ideologies and philosophies, but no one heard me across the airways of my negativity and self-doubt. I lacked identity, affirmation, and having an outlet to first discover and then share me. Where was my voice? There were hymns of hope scattered throughout, where my voice stood large and in charge. One day, for example, someone actually tuned in, my first active listen. She was my 6th grade language arts teacher. Her name escapes me as it was the length of the alphabet and too long to remember, but she was important nonetheless. Truth be told, I was failing her class and failing to live up to my potential. She, on the other hand, was focused on pulling out the best in me. No one had ever been so determined to uncover the real me. Not to just look, but actually see me. Not to just hear, but actually listen to me. She adjusted the dial and listened. I am reminded of the iconic scene in the movie Freedom Writers, where Erin Ruwell, teacher, played by Hilary Swank, talks with her student Andre. Erin says, "The evaluation was to grade yourself on the work you're doing. You gave yourself an F. What's that about?" Andre replies, "It's what I feel I deserve, that's all." Erin says, "Oh, really?" She pauses and goes on to say, "You know what? I don't want excuses. I know what you're up against. We're all up against something. You better make up your mind because until you have the balls to look me straight in the eye and tell me this is all you deserve, I am not letting you fail. Even if that means coming to your house every night until the work is finished. I see who you are. Do you understand me? I see you. And you are not failing." Likewise, with my story, my voice found and experienced harmonious acceptance with my teacher. My words were at home in her presence. As her pupil, I learned and discovered beauty within the English language. But sadly, the school year ended and this budding blossom again retreated within. What's going to happen to my voice? I recall another moment of sweet victory when I was a young girl entering a Sunday school competition. "Class, please take one sheet of paper and a pencil," our teacher had said. "You will be given 45 minutes to develop your very own adage," which is a proverb. "The winner will receive not only a cash prize, but their saying will be featured on bumper stickers." While most in the room seemed more thrilled with winning the cash prize, I fancied the idea of my words being on display. An expression from me on a sticky piece of paper would be like earning a star down Hollywood's Walk of Fame. Such motivation caused the words to flow right out of me. As you might guess, I won the competition and received my star. On a bright yellow bumper sticker written in bold red letters, the saying was simple yet profound. Jesus is the key to your success. Those two momentous occasions of finding my voice were short-lived, now distant memories. There's hope for my voice. Fast forward to my mid-30s and I was in an early morning prayer meeting with a handful of people. We came together regularly to pray for our nation, our community, and one another. Who knew this day would be so significant for me? There's strength in my voice. The leader prayed, then without notice directed the prayer towards me. First, he prayed earnestly for my family, and then the greatness of my future. He continued, but his words began to fade, and they were replaced by this angelic touch, as if someone had reached out and gently touched my tongue. Through this invisible touch, I felt a healing sensation that traveled to those areas of brokenness, my head, my heart. I wept profusely. No longer able to stand, the floor cradled me like a newborn. The leader continued praying over me with greater levels of intensity. His words spoke directly to my spirit. His authoritative tone spoke to my soul. This was no humdrum experience. This was a supernatural encounter with the divine. Use your voice. In a similar manner of an endearing father affirming his son or daughter, a new proclamation had been made over me. What I heard was, "This is who you are. You do have something to say. Your voice will be used to say it." As I listened and received, I cried out years of timidity, bitterness, fear, and frustration. I cried it all out. I left behind the weight of all that heaviness I had carried around since I was a little girl. In its place, I welcomed freedom, restoration, and joy. Bruce Lee once said, "The intangible represents the real power of the universe. It is the seed of the tangible." Although I had no physical, tangible proof, I knew deep within I was healed from my insecurities and self-doubt. This began the journey of discovering my voice. So, where is my voice? Listen closely. It is here, in this very moment. Right here is my voice.
Who needs slides, right? When you have a great story.
Yeah.
Thank you, LaToya.
Yes.
The classes for July are now open. If any of you are interested in signing up for Embodiment 1 classes, you can go to my website at momentusliving.com and click on the Embodiment class link. If those times or days do not work for you, please give me a call or contact me through email at debkerrhenry.com@gmail.com. And I'm always willing to, if you have other women who want to go through a class, I'm always willing to work out a different time and day for you. So anyway, I hope some of you get plugged into the next round of classes starting in July. I would like to end by reading something from a short paragraph from my book, Momentous Living. And to just put it in context, I wrote this book when I was going through a divorce, and I will give a spoiler. I'm not going to give details, but I do need to give a spoiler. On June 6th, just a few weeks ago, my former husband, Patrick, and I got remarried. Wow. It was canceled initially because of the pandemic. It was canceled a second time for family reasons, but we finally did it on June 6th. So, but just to put context to this paragraph. The tension and divide in our country feels like a divorce to me, where people take sides, stake their claims, and view the other as the enemy, pitting women against men, blacks against whites, heterosexuals against homosexuals, liberals against conservatives, and rich against poor, to name just a few. But like with the divorce, there is absolutely no benefit to sabotaging and demanding and spewing words not worthy of reprint. Nobody wins, not you, not me, and especially not our children. We all have something to contribute. As you witnessed tonight, we all have stories that are worthy. It is collective contributions, not myopic, divisive efforts, that move people forward for the betterment of all. And we all, regardless of our dire straits, must rise above and live out for real words like respect. For my husband Patrick and me, we have respect in our marriage vows. And it was only after we divorced that we realized that we weren't even defining that word the same, which I think that happens so much in our culture. We're not defining our words the same, and they're worth a conversation. Patrick and I, after remarrying, or before remarrying actually, we came up with this definition. Respect is patient enough to listen, loving enough to try to understand, and graceful enough when understanding is difficult. It values body, mind, and soul, and encourages living to one's fullest potential. I wanted to leave that with you tonight. As we all hunker down through this pandemic that just seems like it won't go away, just keep your stories, keep these stories in mind, and let's all go out and be a community. better self, better world. We can do this. Thank you for joining me and all of my storytellers. If all of you would just come up one last time, do your social distancing thing, but I did want to recognize them one last time. Let's give them a round of applause. Sonia Jean Craig, Pamela Ray Tatum, Leanne Shaw, and Latoya Carey. Have a great rest of your weekend. Thank you for joining us.